Today I will be talking about dreadnoughts.
Turn down the music! Turn down the music! Turn down the music! My god! First, we need a little backstory.
To truly understand modern naval advancements, we must first return to a simpler time. A time of fantastic facial hair, Napoleon, and of course, great naval battles. We begin with the Age of Sail. During this time, warships were known as ships of the line. Now this was due to a tactic known as the line of battle. The line of battle involved a single file line which was formed by a fleet. Now this was extremely beneficial in some aspects. It was extremely effective because it allowed ships to augment their rate of fire, because no longer would they have to worry about friendly fire. Now the disadvantages of this system were that it was extremely indecisive victories or defeats. Because of these two massive lines facing off against each other, rarely would they land enough hits to irreparably damage a vessel. Generally speaking, it would be minor to mediocre damage. And these types of battles also lasted for hours upon hours, simply because they were rarely hitting their targets, and when they did, they would cause mostly superficial damage. Now this is because cannons at the time were unreliable. Due to the fact that they did not use exact quantities of propellant, they would not necessarily go the same range every time, and they would not necessarily have the same weight in the ball. So it would be very difficult to hit your shots over and over again. Now this would rapidly change as the years advanced. The next naval advancement was ironclads. The most historically significant came out of the American Civil War, known as the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia. The Virginia was a modified, captured Union ship. She had 14 fixed guns and had 4-inch thick armored plating. The USS Monitor was slightly more unorthodox, with its built-from-scratch iron hull and its rotating turret with only 2 guns. Now the advantage of the turret was that while the Virginia had more guns in total, it could not bring all of these guns to bear on a single target. Whereas the Monitor could fire upon any target with both of its guns, the Virginia could at most use 4 of its guns, and these would not necessarily be able to be put to their full use anyways, considering they were spaced out along the hull. Now these two ironclads were in fact not the first to be built, but were the first to do battle, at the Battle of Hampton Roads. They fought for 2 hours in a gunnery duel in which there was a draw. Neither side could effectively penetrate the other's armor. This meant that the ships were largely unscathed, and in fact the USS Monitor would not be sunk by another ship, but in fact would be sunk by a storm. After the Battle of the Virginia and the Monitor, people began to realize the effectiveness of these ironclads, and so began the era of the pre-dreadnoughts. In many ways, the pre-dreadnought era was the growth stage for battleships. In this stage, almost everything was tried. Generally speaking, non-centerline main batteries were used. Secondary batteries were given more importance than main batteries. Most of the ships were effectively barges with guns on top of them. It was a very strange era of trial and error. That is, until the launch of HMS Dreadnought, a truly revolutionary ship, which rendered an entire era of vessels completely and totally irrelevant. Now you may ask, how can one ship render an entire era of ships irrelevant? And the answer was in two very simple things. One, HMS Dreadnought had a uniform main battery. That meant that instead of having its main guns supported by smaller guns, it mostly had main guns, and these main guns were connected to something called a fire control system, meaning that instead of controlling the guns from the turrets individually, all of the turrets were controlled from the same place, giving it the extra coordination that some ships at the time certainly did not have. And in addition to this fact, HMS Dreadnought was one of the first ships to employ steam turbines instead of reciprocating steam engines. Now, this added for extra speed and fuel economy. An interesting fact, HMS Dreadnought was the first ship to sink a submarine when it rammed a German submarine in 1915. After the launch of HMS Dreadnought, the pre-dreadnoughts of old had become stunningly irrelevant. Now began a new arms race.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know.